Welcome everyone to our Bravo 22 live programme and our YouTube channel, made possible by the Royal British Legion and the Drive Project. I'm Scott Yarrington. I started working with Bravo 22 last May on a theatre production called Reparation Island. Bravo 22 has a lot to offer, with top quality artists sharing their insights with you across a huge range of creative areas, chatting to you live and straight into your homes. Please tell any friends and family about Bravo 22 Live and like and share us on Facebook. Please do send in your questions. There will be prompts for you during the live chat and we will do our best to cover them during the live session. Introducing to you now, Bill Britten. Having begun his career as an actor, Bill spent 15 years as a TV director, working on series like Holby City, Eastenders, My Parents Are Aliens, and many others, as well as making several films, one of which was nominated for a BAFTA award. He teaches screen acting at the Drama Centre, one of the country's most prestigious drama schools, where alumni include Tom Hardy, Emilia, Clarke, and Michael Fassbender. His book, From Stage to Screen, is published too by Bloomsbury and is a standard text in many drama schools. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you, Scott. Hello, everybody. I am delighted to be here. And what I'm proposing to talk to you about is the difference between acting on stage and acting on camera. So I'm going to talk briefly about what I think are the philosophical differences between the two media, and then show you a technique that the best screen actors use, and then a few clips of people using this technique. And then finally, we've got a bit of an experiment where Scott has gamely agreed to be on camera and try using one of these techniques. So to start with the difference between stage and screen in terms of the philosophy behind it. I'll keep it simple, but it's essentially, if you can imagine that you're sitting in a coffee shop and you're having a conversation with somebody, maybe it's quite a difficult conversation, and you become aware that the person at the next table is eavesdropping. Now, there are various ways you might react to that. You might think to yourself, well, who the hell are you? Why don't you get your own conversation, butt out and leave us alone, and be annoyed about it. You might think, oh yeah, I noticed them on the way in. Yeah, they're kind of attractive. I don't want to look like an asshole in front of this person who's actually quite sexy. So maybe I'll just smile a little bit more and I'll be a little bit kinder to the person I'm talking to. Or you might even think, look, it's nothing to do with them. I'm just going to screen them out and ignore them. But the reality is, whatever it is you do, they are now in the conversation. It's now a three-way conversation between you, the person you're talking to, and this person over there that you're pretending not to notice. Even if you're screening them out, the very fact that you're screening them out means they're in the conversation. And that, in a nutshell, is what acting on stage is like. You have a conversation with people, or you interact with other actors on stage, and you both pretend that all these people over there who are watching and listening are not there, even though they know that you know that they're there, and you know that they're there. You're pretending they're not. But of course, they are your paying customers. So you need to make sure that they have a good experience. So you might just turn your body slightly in that direction. And you might make your gestures a bit bigger so the people at the back can see. And you might raise the volume of your voice a bit so that the people at the back can hear what's going on. And essentially what you're doing is showing them what's happening between the two of you. The difference with the screen is that the camera comes so incredibly close. There is no need to do any of that. The camera is able to zoom in really, really close. And in fact, the moment you start showing the audience via the camera what's happening and try to manage their experience of you, you look fake. Because it is fake, fundamentally. And one of the things that professional actors really understand is that, I know it's counterintuitive, acting is actually about being completely truthful. Lots of people think of it about being pretending and fakery and so on. But if you think about what bad acting is, it's when you don't believe it. So acting was defined once by a great acting teacher as living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. So yeah, I'm in the life of somebody else, and so are you, and the fictional circumstances are determined by the writer. But within that situation, we have to be absolutely truthful. And the moment you start managing the experience of the camera, it's going to look fake. On stage, the audience needs a bit of help, but on camera, it's going to look fake. And what's underlying that is the fact that as human beings, we are incredibly skilled at reading other people's faces. We've been doing it since we were 6 weeks old. As soon as small babies learn to focus, they start looking at faces, and in particular, the eyes. The eyes, as you know, are the window to the soul. So we're incredibly sophisticated at reading other people's faces when we look. But the reality is, in day-to-day life, we don't look at other people's faces in any detail for any length of time because it's kind of awkward. There is an intimacy about eye contact and a real sense of connection. And if you've ever sat on the underground or on a train and caught the eye of somebody who's sitting opposite you, you probably know what I mean, because there's a moment when usually what happens is somebody looks away. If you don't look away, then after 2 or 3 seconds, something else happens, and there's this kind of connection made because it's intimate. And in fact, usually that connection is heading in one of 2 directions: sex or fighting. There's either a moment of kind of, oh, hello, oh, okay, so we're going to look at each other, are we? Yeah, this is kind of interesting. Wonder where this might go. Or else there's a kind of confrontation built into it, of like, yeah, what are you looking at? Why are you looking at me? And it's because of this intimacy. So usually what happens is we look away. The wonderful thing about the camera for an actor is that it allows the audience to look really, really close for an extended period of time without any of that awkwardness of intimacy. Because of course, the actor can't see you. Right now, I can't see you. I'm talking to a camera. So I don't feel any of that intimacy. I just got to hope that you're paying attention. Whereas if you were sitting in front of me and we were making eye contact, a whole load of other stuff goes on. So therefore, the job of an actor on screen is to let go of the camera, let go of the audience, and truly engage in those imaginary circumstances. And when I was writing the book that Scott referred to, one of the actors that I interviewed for it was Ben Kingsley, who said this great thing. He said, the camera will not tolerate acting. On screen, you must be. I am no longer engaged in acting. I'm engaged in being. So that is the ambition for the actor, just simply to be. And when you are being, when you're just in your life, there are fundamentally 2 places that your attention is. It's either out there in the world as you gather information and you listen and you hear and you see stuff and you're finding things out. And then you go into your inner world, in here, as you process what you've discovered or what you've learned and how it affects you and your hopes and your fears and your ambitions and your dreams. And your attention essentially goes backwards and forwards all the time you're awake, between out there and in here. And it might be something really trivial, like you get to the shop and they've run out of your favorite toothpaste. Okay, that's new information. So you think to yourself, oh, that's a shame, they haven't got any of my favorite toothpaste. Oh, what else have they got? And you go out and you have a look and see, oh, they got that one. Oh, no, I had a bad experience with that one. I didn't like the taste of it very much. What else have they got? And this is consciousness, really. Your attention goes backwards and forwards. At the other end of the spectrum, there are really significant moments in our lives when we find out something which has huge implications. And in those moments too, we go into our inner world and we process what we've discovered. You will all have had this monumental moment when you discovered something that was going to affect the rest of your life, your injuries, whatever your injuries were. Those moments, there will have been a moment when you discovered and you realized what was happening and you've gone into your own inner world to process it. And I'm just going to break off at that point and ask Scott, does this resonate with you? Scott, do you kind of recognize what I'm talking about?
Yeah, definitely. I've had moments in my life, definitely, where someone's been talking to me and then I've like gone into myself and like thought about it, even though they could still be talking.
Yeah. And in a drama, those are often the most interesting moments, when the character discovers something significant that's got a really significant impact on them and their life. And actually, in that moment, it's usually more interesting to watch the listener than the speaker. So in a theatre, you tend to look at the person who's talking. You look at him, then you look at her, then you look at him, then you look at her, and you go backwards and forwards looking at the speaker. Whereas on screen, very often what you do is you put the camera on the speaker and then you cut to the listener just at the moment when they realize whatever it is that's going on, because their reaction is probably the most interesting thing. And in those moments, it's really important that the actor remains available to the camera. And what I mean by that is that rather than actually showing the camera what's happening, the camera needs to be able to see the eyes. So to give you a really simple example, if I was talking to somebody there and they say something that affects me, then if I look away over there, you can't see me. You can see my head, but you have no access to my eyes. Whereas in the same moment, if I break eye contact from that person and I look here, you can still see me. And effectively, there's an area around the lens, which I call the donut, because it's a kind of ring shape around the camera where your eyes can be seen. So anywhere around here, you can still see what's happening for me. You get access to the whites of my eyes and therefore what's happening in my inner world. As soon as I go outside that, you get to see my head, but you don't get any access to my inner life. The donut, by the way, is not an industry standard term. So only actors that have trained with me or read my book will know what I mean by, or what you're talking about if you refer to the donut. But it's something that the best screen actors know intuitively how to do, to remain available to the camera. And it is the difference between being showing the audience something and simply making it available to the audience. So what I'm going to do is show you a few clips of actors doing this very well, containing their eye movement within the donut while still being utterly truthful to what that character is feeling in that moment. The first is a clip from a fantastic film called Moonlight. You see the main character at 3 points in his life, once when he's a schoolboy, once when he's a teenager, and then once when he's in his mid to late 20s, by which stage he's a drug dealer. He's quite a hard guy, but he's incredibly lonely and isolated because of his upbringing. And he's only ever had one sexual experience in his life when he was a teenager. And he's sought out the guy that he had this experience with. And in the clip we're going to see, he reveals to this guy that it's the only time he's ever had a sexual experience. And what you're watching is an incredibly vulnerable, lonely, frightened man confessing something. And because the actor Trevant Rhodes keeps his eyes within the donut, you get access to that and you understand what he's feeling and how vulnerable he is. So, Ian, if we could play the first clip, please.
You're the only man that's ever touched me. You're the only one. I haven't really touched anyone since.
So I'm going to play you another clip, a very different film. This time it's 4 weddings and a funeral. So it's Hugh Grant doing his posh English constipated shtick, talking at a wedding about the guy who's getting married and his own thoughts about it. And again, you see his eyes stay really close to the donut. So Ian, if we could play the second clip, please.
I am, as ever, in bewildered awe of anyone who makes this kind of commitment that Angus and Laura have made today. I know I couldn't do it, and I think it's wonderful they can. So anyway, back to Angus and those sheep.
What you'll also have seen at the end there is the 2 actresses, who are the main female parts in the film. Kristen Scott Thomas, who's in the big pink hat, and Andy McDowell in the white. And both of them do something very similar, which is that they break eye contact with Hugh Grant. But the difference is that Kristin Scott Thomas stays close to the donut. So she does something like from there to there, and you still have access to her eyes. Trained, experienced actress. Whereas Andy McDowell, who was actually a model, who'd only recently moved into acting, doesn't have the same understanding of the camera. So what she does when she breaks eye contact is goes down there. And you just lose access to her. So what I asked Ian to do is to loop that, and we're just going to play it 3 or 4 times because it's very, very fleeting. But by playing it several times, hopefully you'll see exactly what I mean. So if we can play that clip, please, Ian.
I think it's wonderful they can. And 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 I think it's wonderful they can.
Third clip I'm going to play you is featuring a wonderful actress called Tandy Newton, who's a real expert. And this, you see partly in this clip why she's a star. Again, her eyes stay really close to the donut. And the reason I've chosen this clip is that she's playing opposite an actor who actually is a very good actor in many ways, but he doesn't understand it in the same way. So he's looking over there, he's looking down there, he's looking at her, but he doesn't manage to contain his eye movement in quite the same way, whereas she gives you a masterclass in how to do this. So let's play that clip, please, Ian. Oh, the sound is not great.
Ross, were you with someone? I love you, and I've always trusted you, but for the sake of our marriage and for the sake of our kids, I need the truth.
Okay. AC12 are investigating one of my cases, looking for an angle to discredit me. Internal politics, 100% total bollocks. Sorry they involved you. But that is their kind of mind game. And the bastards get away with it as they claim they're enforcing professional standards.
So final thing we're going to do is a little experiment. Scott has gamely volunteered to have a go at this. So what I'm going to do is play you a scene from a film called Glengarry Glen Ross. We'll play you the scene so you see the pictures first of all, as Alec Baldwin basically gives a dressing down to this bunch of sales guys. And then I'm going to ask, we'll put Scott on camera and ask him to react to what he's hearing as though he were one of the people in the office listening to this. So first of all, the whole scene, including the pictures, so you get a sense of what's going on. Ian, if we can play that.
Because the good news is you're fired. The bad news is you've got just 1 week to regain your job, starting with tonight. Starting with tonight's sit.
Oh, have I got your attention now? Good.
Because we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize, a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. You get the picture? You laughing now? You got leads. Mitch and Murray paid good money. Get their names to sell them. You can't close the leads you're given. You can't close shit. You are shit. Hit the bricks, pal, and beat it, because you are going out.
So hopefully you've now got a sense of what's happening in the scene as Alec Baldwin berates these sales guys. So I'm now going to ask Ian if you could spotlight Scott. And what I've agreed with Scott is that he's going to look at an imaginary Alec Baldwin, and we'll just watch his face as he listens to Alec Baldwin giving him this dressing down without moving his eyes. So where Scott's looking right now is where Alec Baldwin is. And if we could just play the edited clip, please, Ian, and we'll just see what it's like watching somebody hearing this.
As we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest, as you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize, a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. You get the picture? You laughing now? You got leads. Mitch and Murray paid good money. Get their names to sell them. You can't close the leads you're given. You can't close shit. You are shit. Hit the bricks, pal, and beat it, because you are going out.
So he doesn't move his eyes, and we might imagine certain things he's thinking and feeling, but we don't actually really truly understand what's happening for him internally. He appears to be just a guy hearing. So we're going to play it again, and this time I've asked Scott to look down from time to time. And I hope what you'll see is you begin to understand what's happening for him internally. The first time he looks down, by the way, is when Alec Baldwin says, second prize is a set of steak knives. So if you imagine, you then cut to a shot of the steak knives. So you see Scott looking down, then you see the steak knives, then you come back to Scott. But all the other moments, what I hope and think you'll see is a man responding to what's happening and thinking, feeling things about what it means for him. So if we could play the clip again, please, Ian.
As we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest, as you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize, a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. You get the picture? You laughing now? You got leads. Mitch and Murray paid good money. Get their names to sell them. You can't close the leads you're given. You can't close shit. You are shit. Hit the bricks, pal, and beat it, because you are going out.
Great. Thanks, Scott. I have to say, Scott is magnificent in not feeling the need to overact, which lots of people do when they start acting on screen. But simply by moving his eyes, we understand some of what's going on internally for him. And of course, for an editor, those are wonderful moments when you can cut to him, you can see his eyes move, and therefore see what he's thinking and feeling before cutting back to Alec Baldwin. So that, in a nutshell, is the difference between working on stage and working on screen, and in particular, working the donut so that the audience has access to your inner world, which is what they're really interested in. Scott, do we have any questions people have?
Yes, Bill, we do have a few questions. What if the acting gets too real and too close to real life? Is there ever of any concern? That's from Kaffa.
Yeah, well, yes, it is. In terms of if a character is going somewhere really extreme, it is incredibly taxing for the actor. It's a weird mixture of moment by moment when you keep breaking it up, because you do a take and you cut. So in a way, they're able to step out of it. And you do that repeatedly during an 11-hour day. It'll take 45 minutes or an hour to light the scene. And then you do it repeatedly, in, out, action, cut, action, cut. So the actor is constantly stepping into it and stepping out of it. But over the period of filming, yeah, if it's a really emotionally demanding role, it's very easy for actors to get caught up in that. And to some degree, they have to take it on elsewhere in their lives. And I once read Denzel Washington talking about the point in his life where he was able to leave it at the door because he realized it wasn't working for his family and his kids for him to take the role home with him at night. But early in his career, like most young, hungry actors, he had pretty much lived the part for the duration of filming. So yes, it is a danger, and it does need managing.
Right. We do have another question. Do some stage actors find it too difficult to transfer to screen? And that's from Phil.
Yes, they do. There are a string of great theatre actors who have successfully made the move to screen, or maybe have always done it. People like Ian McKellen, Helen McCrory, Mark Rylance, even if you don't know their names, you'd probably recognize their faces, who are equally at home, it seems, on both media. But there are also a number of great stage actors, who I won't name, who just don't work on screen. And very occasionally you see them on screen and you understand why they don't work on screen. It's because they can't let go of the need to show what's happening. And in fact, McKellen is particularly interesting because I would argue in the first part of his career, until he was about 40, whenever you saw him on screen, he was overacting. And it just looked melodramatic and too big. And then something happened around the time, I think it was the late 80s, when he did Richard III on screen, and he got it. And he just stopped projecting. And from then on, of course, he's had this fabulous career as a screen actor. But of course, he's never let go of the stage. But yes, there are some who just can't quite seem to understand the difference and make it work.
Okay, we do have one more question. This might be a technical point, but I noticed that actors in the example isn't often in the centre of the frame, but more often to one side. Is there a reason for this? And that's from Mick.
Yes, when you're, as a director, the composition of the shot is really important. So often that will be communicating something. For example, you quite often there's a thing called a two shot where you have two heads in the frame side by side. You might want to intimate to the audience that actually this person has not found their partner yet. So you frame it as though you've got two heads, but you only have one head in it. So the frame itself is telling the audience this person's life is incomplete. There is a space in their life for somebody. Or it might be that you go in really close and off to the side. Again, you put them in the corner of the frame, not necessarily because there's an empty space for somebody else, but because their life is unsettled and off center. So there are lots of kind of compositional techniques that the director of photography and the director will come up with in order to subconsciously communicate to the audience where the character is. And the same thing goes on with cameras, and whether it's on a tripod so it doesn't move, or on the track so it's gliding around, or handheld so it's constantly moving. A lot of the camera work and composition will be communicating with the audience what's happening emotionally for the characters.
Cheers, Bill. We have had a few more questions coming on that, as you was on that last one. Filming can be such a long day. How would you manage the change in light from Lorraine?
Well, bizarrely, what usually happens is that the director of photography will put a tent on the windows and block out all the daylight, and then put a lamp inside that tent to mimic the sun for precisely that reason. Otherwise, what you find is as the day goes on, the shadows move slowly around the room, and when you come to edit it, you've got one person in the conversation with the shadows of a certain length and in light coming from a certain direction. And then you cut to somebody else and the light's coming from a completely different direction, and all the shadows are different and doesn't match up. So what directors of photography like to do is to control absolutely everything to do with the light, hence the tent, and hence the sun is rarely the sun. It's usually a huge, great lamp outside the window.
And this will be our last question. Aside from the eyes, are there any specific techniques that can be used with body language? That's from Matt.
The really experienced screen actors, some of them like to know what the shot size is, and they will actually ask you, how close is this shot? And they control very carefully the degree of movement. Some of them know because where the boom is the microphone, and the boom is always just outside the frame. So if the boom is quite close, if it's sitting there, you know it's a very close shot. Whereas if it's 3 or 4 feet above my head, I know it's a wide shot. I have to say that's very skilled to be able to manage the performance according to the size of the shot. So it's usually only very technically adept actors, and certainly inexperienced actors. I think it's quite a mistake for them to think in terms of that. I send them back to live truthfully in imaginary circumstances. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Bill. That was brilliant. Thank you very much. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone who tuned into your questions and comments. In the video description below, there are some great resources to help people find more acting to screen, as well as a feedback form, which we'd love you to fill in so that we can continue making Bravo 22 Live bigger and better. Next Wednesday, we still have some places on 2 workshops, one at 11 AM on Foley with Ruth Sullivan, where you'll be learning how to record sound effects for film, and one at 4 p.m. with Claire Murphy, who will be teaching you the skills required to transport others through the art of telling stories. And if you'd like to sign up for any of them, please email Alice Palmer at thedriveproject.co.uk. And if you sign up by the end of today, that'd be great. We'll be back on Bravo 22 Live on Thursday, 11 a.m, continuing our Art Masterpiece series with Al Johnson and Kevin White, who will be discussing The Great Wave of Kanagwa by Husaki. Thank you, bye for now, and have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you all on Thursday. Thank you very much.